Bill Brink here, brinkzone.com. Today I want to cover a topic that I don't think gets enough attention, which is the benefits of cocoa. Now we have to talk about chocolate in the context of cocoa, of course, which is hence the title of this video, because most of the data on the benefits of cocoa is via chocolate, because of course cocoa is the main bioactive compound in chocolate. So proper science, good science, of course, really means that if the studies are done on chocolate, which most of them are, even though vis-a-vis benefits of cocoa, you still have to talk about chocolate. And you can then talk about if there's studies that examine cocoa separately, which there are, but not a lot. Interestingly, there's some newer ones. But most of the studies, as you may expect, are on chocolate. Now, again, this doesn't mean that we don't talk about the benefits of cocoa specifically, but again, good science dictates what it dictates. So let's break this down a little bit. So I don't know if a lot of people have paid that much attention to the benefits of chocolate/cocoa. They hear in the news, chocolate's good for you and so forth, but there's actually some really interesting data, interesting studies. I just put up an article on that. So per other videos, what I'm going to do is basically share on the screen here the article that I wrote, use that as kind of the outline for this discussion. So of course, if I miss anything or people want sources, they want more details, the full article will be linked below the video. But there are some really interesting studies on the value of cocoa and slash chocolate. And I'm going to cover some of those today, which honestly, not all of them. And of course, is the reason that cocoa is one of the key ingredients in AlphaJoe. So let me, if I can, now sometimes I get a little clunky with this screen sharing thing. So hopefully I pull this off pretty well. But okay, come on in, screen, add to stream. Okay, there we go. We got that. From a mechanical point of view, sharing this, it's usually best to have two monitors to do this properly. And I actually need to get a second monitor to do this. So again, what I have to do is basically I flip over to the page. You won't see it happening, but I basically have to go over to the page so we can discuss this. So let's get into this article. So obviously, as you can see, that is a picture of cocoa. So chocolate, as you've heard, I'm going to screen down a little bit. Here we go. All right. So as you guys know, that there's good data, pretty consistent data that there's a benefit to, chocolate ingestion / cocoa. And as time went on, what was pretty much evaluated is that the benefits seem to happen, obviously, with good dark chocolate. So by good dark chocolate or by dark chocolate, the cutoff is usually about 70% cocoa. That seems to be now, there hasn't been studies, where it shows that 65% is not a benefit and only 70 is. But I think 70% seems to be consistently what's considered dark chocolate and above. 70% also from a flavor perspective. Now, if you're a chocolate eater, which I am, if you're a lover of chocolate, which I am, I think that around 70 to 75% seems to be sort of the balance between taste, just really good tasting chocolate, and getting plenty of cocoa for the benefit. But of course, you can eat, there's chocolate with cocoa in 80%, 85%, 90%, which I eat also. But I think for most people who are not used to dark chocolate, around 70%-ish is where the flavor, and once, like anything, like coffee, like any acquired taste, I think once you get used to that stronger chocolate, you tend to work your way up towards chocolate with higher cocoa contents. But be that as it may, I think that for most part, the sort of the sweet spot, no pun intended, for ingesting of good chocolate and getting the benefits of cocoa is around 70%, and you can work your way up. So let's work our way a little bit down. Now, again, this is as much really a discussion about cocoa, obviously, as it is chocolate. But I want to be clear that I think we can separate them, and we do. But some people separate, for example, or some people will say will use like caffeine and coffee as interchangeable terms, and they're actually not interchangeable terms. That's another topic in another article, which I will post below, that people and scientists, people who should know better, including some medical professionals and stuff, will commonly use caffeine and coffee interchangeably, and they're not, because again, caffeine is one ingredient, it's one molecule synthetically produced, and caffeine or coffee here, actually, I'm doing it. Coffee has literally up to 1,000 identified compounds in it, at least half of which have never been even studied. So to use them interchangeably is not correct. Now, I think we are safer using cocoa and chocolate interchangeably, especially when you're up at those higher intakes of 70%, 80%. But again, I try to be a stickler for good science, and so keep that in mind. But so speaking of cocoa, which is the main ingredient, of course, in chocolate, again, you have to understand that there's hundreds of bioactive compounds in chocolate, not some of which have yet to be even fully identified, elucidated, and studied. But they're basically sort of under the various subgroup polyphenols, which includes flavonoids and flavanols, amines, alkaloids, tyramine, magnesium, which is not, of course, a polyphenol, proanthocyanidins, phenylalanine, and so on. So I list those in this article. But good data, suggests it can lower blood pressure, improve insulin resistance, improve endothelial function. And that one actually may be happening through nitric oxide. There is studies that suggest that cocoa improves nitric oxide, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard that term. Nitric oxide was sort of a big deal a few years ago. Not that it's not still a big deal, but it was sort of the darling molecule for a while that nobody would shut up about. Anyway, it's still important. It is important to have healthy nitric oxide metabolism for sure. But like everything, it's not the be-all, end-all focus to health and longevity. But there is some good data on that. Some studies do find, again, a reduction in cardiovascular disease and strokes with with chocolate ingestion. I haven't had all of my coffee today. I am, in fact, finishing up my first mug of bomb-proof coffee here. Maybe this will focus me a little better. Okay, let's get back to this. So that's what a variety of benefits that cocoa is associated with. And when I say associated, of course, I mean we're talking about correlational type studies, which are weak. And when weak studies, correlational, it's difficult to make cause and effect conclusions from correlational data. It's not that it's not useless data. It has its uses for sure in identifying and focusing on what is helping people, what is harming people. And then what you then need to do is, once you narrow down what you suspect is a benefit or a negative to people's health, then you have to go and do, direct intervention studies where you feed them cocoa or coffee or whatever, and then look at endpoints such as blood pressure or insulin and whatever you're looking for. But so that's just sort of some of an overview of some of the benefits that cocoa seems to have via regular chocolate ingestion. Now, we just don't have a lot of data specific to cocoa, because most people obviously get their cocoa ingestion through chocolate. It's only really recently that that people have become aware of the benefits of cocoa and cacao, are ingesting it separately from chocolate. That is, buying it in powdered form and adding it, as quote unquote superfood to protein drinks. In my case, coffee, via bomb-proof coffee recipe / AlphaJoe. But beyond some of the sort of overview I just gave, another study actually found that the ingestion of dark chocolate improved several cognitive tests, such as verbal memory, which is actually, shows, which would suggest obviously brain metabolism benefits, which might be vasodilation, might be, nitric oxide via vasodilation improvements. The exact mechanism unclear, but obviously you're probably talking about an improvement in cerebral blood flow via some of those cocoa flavonoids. So that's a really interesting one. Let's see. So I'm scanning down a little bit. Stick with me here. I want to get to some of the other stuff. So another study found improved oxygenation and cognition in healthy adults, likely via nitric oxide signaling, improved blood flow. So that's a big deal. Cerebral blood flow is an especially important thing again as we age. Researchers, of course, are becoming more and more interested in the topic of cerebral blood flow via age, via exercise. If your brain, as we age due to narrowing of arteries and poor nitric oxide and vasodilation, obviously cerebral blood flow or lack thereof is also associated with other diseases, such as Alzheimer's and such. So that's a big deal. Anything that can improve cerebral blood flow in a healthy way is definitely something to keep an eye on. From an athletic perspective, obviously the increased production of free radicals, increased oxidative stress can, left unchecked or uncontrolled, can create excessive damage, tissue damage, overtraining and stuff. So there was a recent study that actually found that dark chocolate, which was 85% CoA content, actually modulated oxidative stress in elite level football athletes. So that's a good one, which is linked in here. So again, don't worry if I'm not getting into details. I'm just kind of trying to do an overview to give people an idea of just how broad the potential benefits of cocoa ingestion is. So another recent study, which was seems sort of unrelated but really interesting, was effect of chocolate on older patients with cancer and receiving palliative care. And that which actually found a number of benefits. Why it was unclear, because what's interesting about that particular study was it found that there was benefits from both white and dark chocolate. And not only did it find benefits from white and dark chocolate, it actually found the benefits were different from white and dark chocolate, which is interesting. Why remains unclear, but there were still benefits, which is why, again, from a science perspective, we think the vast majority of benefits coming from ingestion of chocolate is, of course, due to the cocoa content, but it might not be all of it. And that study that found benefits. Now, again, it could be specific to the population, which is, older patients with advanced cancer. Don't know, but just keep that in mind. And another study recently found the consumption of 85% cocoa improved mood in association with gut microbial changes in healthy adults. Now, this is actually a really important finding, because if some of you have been paying attention, you know that the whole topic of gut microbes, gut biome, diasbosis, which has to do with sort of a large term having to do with, again, the health of the gut microbe, how it affects the rest of the body. And so the ingestion of 85% cocoa improved both objectively the gut microbe flora, and improved subjectively mood states using a positive and negative affect schedule known as the PANAS, PANAS. But there's a lot of, though the sort of talking about gut health and gut microbe and the biome has been around a long time, and you've been following this, it's really just starting, I think, to catch up with the objective science as far as them looking at it. It's a very complicated topic, but what is really emerging in the last few years is what they call the gut-brain axis. And this is a big area of study, really interesting area of study, very important, that is just really starting to get some traction, which is what's clear is that the gut and the brain, hence the term axis, have a direct communication that goes back and forth. A lot of what is produced in the gut impacts the brain, is signaling, a lot of signaling molecules, positive and negative, and the gut and the brain literally talk to each other in direct access. And again, I don't think that really wasn't appreciated. I mean, we've always, again, sort of in a sort of vague way. So, well, sure, what we eat obviously impacts our brain, our health sort of secondarily, but this is not a secondary effect. This appears to be a very direct, like I say, direct communication access between the brain and the gut. So this is actually a big deal. But found, like I say, so ingestion of 85% cocoa, and that study is linked. So if you want details, below on this article, there's a number of other papers, as you can see, that I have linked. So take a look at that article. I'm not going to go into things like doses and all that. But when I was designing the formula, which was bomb-proof coffee 10 years ago, again, what kept coming up on my radar as an obvious thing to combine with my coffee, along with other ingredients, was cocoa. And this was before we even had all these. At the time, there really was just a consistent association between cocoa eating, ingestion, and all these benefits. As I was saying, that is more of we're talking epidemiological, correlational data versus direct intervention studies, which are coming out. And the ones that are coming out, as I'm pointing out, are very, very promising, where they are controlling the variables and can safely say that the effect that's being seen is due to cocoa ingestion / chocolate ingestion versus just there's an association with, which is, again, has its benefits. That's another debate for another time. Finally, a study that just came out, I don't think I have that one on my screen. So you guys are going to have to forgive me if I go look this guy up to bring it. I should have had this one up. Got to go to Brinkzone. But this is a really interesting study done specifically on cocoa. And remember, I was being a little, I'm trying to be a stickler about the good science and keeping those two, though I think they are interchangeable. I think we can't 100% always just ignore, okay, I'm getting there. Give me a second. I'm stalling here, basically is what I'm doing. But I want to bring up this article that I just put up, which is separate from the other one. Okay, so I need to remove this guy. Okay, I need to go to screen share. Hold on. Don't screen share. Stop. What is, okay, hold on a second here. I don't want to add that to stream. I want to stop screen share. Okay, I see. Now I want to go to share. All right, people. This is a little annoying, I know. Chrome tab. Okay. Here it comes. Here comes the big article. Okay, hopefully you all can see that. Let me check my little StreamYard. As I said, no, you cannot see that. There you go. Good thing I checked. All right. You can see that. All right. Sorry. Again, I need two screens to do this properly, and it is my own fault that I got to jump back and forth on one screen to make sure. However, before I leave you, you all are going to want to see this RCT. This is sort of all of the caveats that I was talking about before, that to make us a little bit cautious or keep things in context. This study, I feel, in some respects, really addresses all of that. Okay, so this was a recent study, just came out, which is a direct intervention study, i.e. they fed people not chocolate but cocoa. They fed them 500 milligrams a day of cocoa flavanol, and they found, and this was a big study. This one I'm even going to go a little bit of details into, because I think people need to, again, some of the criticisms of some studies like this, and they're valid studies, but anyway, are sometimes they're too small, or they didn't last long enough, and that type of thing, or of course that they're just correlational. But this was an RCT, double-blind, placebo-controlled, which used 12,666 women and 8,776 men. These are older adults. They were between 65 for women and 60 for men. And they looked specifically at cardiovascular disease. And what they found was almost a 30% reduction in death from cardiovascular disease. That in literature or in studies, that is huge. Even 5%, whatever statistically significant would be, but let's say statistically significant found that it, reduced cardiovascular death by, 5%. When you're talking about thousands or millions of people, that's a lot of people. So when you're talking about almost 30%, that's bigger, that's bigger than, it's bigger than statins. It's bigger than any cardiovascular drug that I'm aware of. So regular ingestion of 500 milligrams of flavanols had a really impressive effect. Now, oddly enough, it did not find a statistically significant effect in things like myocardial infarction, stroke, unstable angina, and other others that they looked at, which is a little odd, but maybe explainable due to their age and the fact that they, whatever cardiovascular related diseases they had probably already had. So I'm not sure what the answer is to why it had such a dramatic reduction in actual death rate from cardiovascular disease, but didn't have a statistically significant impact on those other events, such as having heart attacks and stuff. It's very possible that if you were to give this to younger people who had not developed, had already, developed their cardiovascular disease and ran the study out long enough that it would impact those outcomes too. I don't know the real answer to that. However, that particular finding is really, really amazing. And like I say, sort of checks off all the boxes of the things that I was talking about earlier, such as being just a correlational study or chocolate and so forth. I will link this article below too, so you can check that out. But I think the basic take home of this video, let me close this bad boy. Stop with the sharing. All right, enough sharing. So basic take home of this is that regular cocoa ingestion looks to be extremely beneficial in a wide range of areas, as you can all see, in terms of seems like risk factors, cerebral blood flow, possibly mood. Another study, which I didn't bring up, an older study, though, did find that it was the cocoa directly in coffee was synergistic. Again, it actually seemed to actually level off some of the negative impacts of caffeine in some people. That is, the jitters or mild anxiety and stuff, and had some other mood boosting effects. So again, it's a no-brainer in my view to put in coffee, which is why I already did it and recommended it. There may be some synergism again with some other ingredients that I added to my own formula, but regardless of what you use, it would seem to me the data is very promising. Let's say very highly suggestive. I'm not going to say absolutely knocked out of the park because good science, but I'm going to say that I think that the totality, as we call it, the bulk of the data is more than promising, more than suggestive that regular cocoa ingestion via powdered cocoa, via 70% or above chocolate and so forth, it looks to be a clear winner in my view. Clear anti-aging, disease preventing, possibly performance enhancing, mood enhancing intake. Cocoa wise, there's some issues with processing. Again, I think that what you want, from what I have read, is you want unprocessed, non-alkalized Dutch processed cocoa. Most of the cocoa out there is Dutch processed. There is some reason to believe that the flavanol content is higher in the non-processed, non-alkalized, non-Dutch processed versions, which is what I use in AlphaJoe. I also use organic, undutched cocoa, but you can find that in some stores and online, but you do have to look. Don't just take any cocoa that you see from a powder perspective and start putting in your protein powder. Now, it's not to say it's worthless. Again, there's really not a lot of studies comparing the two, but we do know that the flavanol content appears higher in non-Dutched, non-alkalized cocoa, and I use the organic version. Costs a little more, but I think that's what I wanted in mind. I'm sure it's what you want in yours. So hopefully this helps. Leave comments below, questions. Check out the articles that I will post below for details. I know it's a little short on details, but we're already running at 25 minutes for this video. And I like to do overviews. And for those people that are interested in really getting details and tracking down studies, which I recommend, I encourage people that are science minded to go track down some of those studies and read them and see, where your thoughts are on them. And, if you have thoughts that are counter to mine, I'm always happy to discuss it. So hopefully that was helpful. And I'll see you all on the brink zone.